Welcome. We are visiting the values of the Constitution of India, and in this context, we have conceived a project. The project is to have a case study of the Haryana state judicial setup. The case study is having a very realistic frame, and this frame is that we are having in tabulated in fully expressed form the complete journey of a judicial officer. And the judicial officer, Justice S.D. Anand, is having a parallel participation in the growth functional reality of the state of Haryana. State of Haryana was born, was created in 1966, and the life journey of Justice S.D. Anand as well had a phase of law education from 1966. Justice S.D. Anand joined judicial service in 1970. He retired as High Court judge in 2010. And 10 years, 1 decade after his retirement, he is having active participation in this understanding, this dissemination, and having new perspective of this system. Justicing is the core subject of absorption of Justice S.D. Anand. He is good enough to have fully expressed himself as autobiographical expression, barring the facts, The Prism is Mine, is his first book of the year 2011. In the second book, Living in Vestibule, he has further given insight of the way he feels he had been participating. And the last book, the third book, 2019, is in fact tabulating the chain of situations through which he has been, to which he has been a party, to which he has been a witness, and it is existential dilemma of justice delivery system. These three books are being taken as a base to conceive this project and to proceed further to have a realistic evaluation of justice systems under the Constitution of India, where human factor is having its dominant role, and this is being chased in the context of Haryana judicial setup. Therefore, this case study is the most realistic project. We shall get ourselves involved to have realistic imbibing of the values lively as constitutional apparatus of ours. This constitutional apparatus, when it is to be chased in the context of the judicial setup of the state of Haryana, with reference to these three books, then the advantageous exploitation which we can have is that we can have interaction, we can have a regular interaction with Justice as the Anand himself. And this way, I feel that we can have a real tabulation of the values for our realistic frame to project the way we would like to shape the judiciary, the judicial setup, the justice systems, the justicing, all what we want is to be of such and such values. The project is Haryana judicial setup. This has clear imprint as that our starting point shall be the history and inheritance of the state on its birth, 1st November 1966. The same as well is to have the evaluation of history and inheritance in the context of the territory, population, resources, and institutional network with which Haryana started its journey. This feature of history and inheritance and the context and reference of territory, population, resources, and institutional network at the initial stage should be kept in mind. And it is in this respect as well, these three books of Justice S. D. Anand be evaluated as to how realistic expression has been there, then how in the context of the expression about history, inheritance, territory, population, resources, institutional network of the state of Haryana on its birth, the same are to be evaluated critically. Very critical we shall be to have the realistic evaluation, as it is only in terms of it we will be in a position to project our ideals. What we want should be the values of Haryana judicial setup will emerge only from our critical analysis. See, Justice S. D. Anand is very frank, very transparent, very liberal, very generous, and highly ideal while expressing the reality. The first day when he took the oath, and after that short event, having presided a court, the description he gives of his courtroom, the need of pre-functional training and want of assistance by the advocates provided to him are certainly very big issues which are to be considered, to be evaluated, to be appreciated, and full thought need be given to all these features. The court's infrastructure as it has been in 1970, the court's infrastructure as has been inherited by state of Haryana in itself gives us full insight as to how the judiciary, the courts, the court buildings, the court infrastructure was fully neglected aspect at that time. So when we shall be appreciating the growth of Haryana judicial setup, then certainly one of the parameters is going to be the improvement, the enrichment which has been made since 1966 till today in the form of the judicial complexes, the judicial courts buildings, the judicial infrastructures improvement. This one factor shall weigh with us continuously as technologically we are transforming ourselves. The technological breakthroughs which stand attained or having a full pressure upon the way we have to improve and we have to enrich our infrastructure. Court buildings as have been conceived and as have been structured or in the background of our perspective of pre this technological breakthrough. The courts are to transform themselves. The courts are transforming and are becoming the technological, the digital based setups offices. So the way courtrooms at present stand equipped, stand conceived, are to transform themselves. Therefore, in this reference, the description provided by Justice S.D. Anand may be said to be a classical period expression. So, this depiction, as it is, may be taken as a reference point, and then in this background, it is to be conceived, it is to be projected, it is to be imagined, and it is to be realized that the new generation courtrooms are certainly going to be differently equipped. These are to be distinctively organized. The court environment in this new and environments is going to be certainly of different values. The other aspect which stands pointed by Justice S.D. Anand is the necessity which he felt for pre-functional training. Our selection process and the pre-functional training programs for the judicial officers were simply not there, as is the observation, as is the expression of Justice S.D. Anand. A young man at the age of 21 years is straight away being given the responsibility to preside a court. It is a total different factor that, as far as Justice S.P. Anand himself was concerned at that time, he had the advantage, and his advantage was that he being from a judicial family, he being the son of a judicial officer in chair, therefore, as is expressed by him, he had the advantage which others have not. He had the advantage to meet every day a judicial officer, his father. His sister was also judicial officer. He also had the advantage, as is pointed out by him, that he could visit the chamber of his father, the judicial officer. He could glance through the files. He could be witness to the way things happen. And these all circumstances, all these advantageous position certainly helped him to conduct in a much better way as the judicial officers on its very first day itself. However, the focus as he has given is that there is a necessity for appropriate pre-functional training. This aspect deserves to be evaluated. We have to give proper focus and attention upon this aspect. The other feature focused by him is that at the initial stage, the assistance by advocates is utmost necessity. One instance which he has quoted is as to how the liar tried to give a direction for invoking the criminal law procedure in the proceedings of a civil law. The want of assistance had been there. He was fortunate and having the advantage, being already well acquainted with the distinctive procedural steps of civil law and criminal law, and so he averted a big misdirected eventuality attempted by the particular liar. These three things, the court's infrastructure, pre-functional training, and assistance by the advocates, may be taken triple parameters in terms of which we have to continue the chase. This case study of Haryana judicial setup with focus upon such like initial parameters is going to enrich us in our projections, and it is this way that we have to view the institutional perspective vis-a-vis the individual advantages and disadvantages inherited by the individual of its own, how the institutional perspective is to be there, and how the individual advantages and disadvantages apart, the institutional care is to be taken for enriching the individuals. Judicial officers, as human beings, are to be enriched by proper education and proper training. This takes us to as to what law courses are there for the candidates of judicial competitive examinations, and the departmental examinations courses, the way those are designed, or the factors and features which are to be analyzed very critically. So we shall proceed with the law courses which give the initial initiative, and then we have to be seriously involved in crafting the departmental enrichment courses. Like that, we shall take that we have to presume as that everything is in a melting pot. Therefore, our this case study shall proceed without presuming anything, and the descriptions as these are there in these books of Justice S.D. Anand be taken firstly on its face value, and then these are to be analyzed critically in reference to other realistic expressions of other judicial souls. It is here where we have to search for the autobiographical and similar types of expressions by judicial officers as well as by the advocates and the law scholars. There may be not a very big list of such documents, but certainly there are many, there are sufficient to help us. The other source which we can take is certainly the judgments. We shall analyze the judgments from the point of view as to how much of them are of reversal nature at the first appellate stage or at the second appellate stage. And then we have to imbibe as to how much of them have been because of non-proper steps of procedural trials, and how much reversals have been because of not proper appreciation of the substantive law. Both substantive law and procedural law are the cause of injustice, the reversal of judgments because of the non appreciation and application of the procedural law, and misconception and misapplication of the substantive law deserve to be categorized differently. Our appreciation in respect of the procedural diversions shall be of initial importance, as in respect of it, our training courses can be designed. However, as far as non appreciation of the substantive law values are concerned, in respect of it, something much different is to be designed. There may be a prolonged courses, refreshing courses, which may be required, and it is here where the judicial academies will come to the help. This institutional perspective of human factor is our basic concern. Our present project and our present chase is certainly for imbibing the values of the Constitution, but they are to be framed realistically, and this takes us to the role of the human factor. It is this human factor which is not to be restricted only to the judicial officers, but the same is to be equally stressed with respect to all other components, including of the investigating officers, public prosecutors, and the private counsel. The training of the court staff, what precisely is to be the court staff setup as well is the central issue, as court is not the judicial officer. Court is an institution. How institutionally data analysis, data tabulation, and other assistance is to be provided to the judicial officer is the subject of concern. Therefore, while we shall continue our chase of these project values, we shall at every step remain open, as all what we are conceiving and realizing at present is restrictive conditioning because of our much stress upon what we are seeing and through it what we are passing. But the disease, when is to be analyzed, is a different aspect, and disease, when is to be treated, is certainly of different values. So, conceiving a project or being efficient to properly spot the disease is one value, and to acquire skills to treat the disease is a different value. So our project shall be for both these streams of values, and it is here where I would like that each one of us shall start tabulating particular questions to be asked to Justice S.D. Anand to explain how he views our queries and whether he has new versions of his expressions of these books. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.